Hello everyone. Today's virtual course is about layering two centrals. The objectives of this course are creating naturally layered centrals by learning first how to mix the porcelain powders, second how to cut back the porcelain to allow integration of both. Third is how to unify the optical properties of different base materials, like even in the case of having two different base materials such as like Emax on one side and zirconia on the other side, like our case scenario for today. As you all know that Ivoclar's main point of having different translucencies of zirconia is to create a correlation between the zirconia and the Emax when it comes to the material selection. For instance, if you need to combine Emax for high aesthetic with zirconia for high strength in the same case, you don't worry anymore about the shade or translucency level match, because whatever ingot you choose from Emax, you would find a match from zirconia Emax Zircad. Exactly as you see here in our case scenario. Two copings. The one on your left side is the Emax press, and even you see still the leftover of the sprue. And the one on your right side is the zirconia, the Zircad zirconia. Both of them are LT, low translucency. So the shade and translucency are very close between both. But we have to use our experience with the porcelain powder to make the final results even closer. And that's what we're going to see for the rest of this video. As you all know that besides the difference in the reflection index between the two crowns, the Emax and the zirconia, we also have a big gap in the fluorescence content level. Emax press, the lithium disilicate, has a certain level of fluorescence. Take a look, please. While Zircad zirconia has no fluorescence at all. This is the picture on the right side of the screen. This is the zirconia, and the left side is the lithium disilicate Emax. And that's very obvious under black light. And that's one important reason why Emax, whether the pressed or the CAD cammed, must always be our selection for aesthetic region. And no zirconia will beat it cosmetically no matter what. Therefore, the best way here to increase the fluorescence on the zirconia side, on the zirconia crown, is applying a coat of zerliner. Zerliner is the best. Well, the next best material to use is the margin powder. Could be the margin powder is one of the highest level of fluorescence. The margin powder can be sprinkled or layered as a thin shell on the zirconia coping. Well, in our case, I sprinkled it on both crowns. That's what you see here. Then I baked both of them on the margin firing program. And here you see the results after firing shown under the black light. So we can see how much we were able to boost the fluorescence level. So if you look at both and compare the results, you see that still the Emax beats the zirconia when it comes to the fluorescence level. But at least we put some fluorescence on the zirconia side. And now we're ready to start the build-up. We will watch this video from this step, which is finalizing the shape and the body of the dantel. As you see here, no matter what course we're doing, we always pay attention to the morphology and the shade of the natural dentition. To do this, I always provide a model of the mock-up. That's what I'm holding now. to follow the shape closely, and also a photo of the teeth to follow the shade. That's why I will always be holding this model again in my site, working on this case. Both when building the first Danton layer and when finalizing the last incisor layer. In both, I will be focusing on the morphology. Till this step, 70% of the final size must be built. The second step is the straight cutback and the dynamic Danton. With our ceramic brush, we do the straight cutback with our ceramic brush. We can shape it sharp by flattening the hair and use it for the ceramic cutback. We start with the straight cutback, as I call it, because later we will see the mammalon cutback. That's why I call this straight cutback, so we can recognize the difference between both. The straight cutback, where we would empty a room and the incisor third from the buccal aspect, as you see, keeping it tapered toward the incisal edge, in a sense of reducing the thickness of the Danton in this third. And we also open the mesial and distal corner completely. And this room then can be filled with a second layer, which is practically called the dynamic Danton. Why the dynamic Danton? Because it's mixed with another powder. And of course, the vertical length is extended again by another 10%. What's the dynamic Danton? The definition of the dynamic Danton. Dynamic Danton is an individual mixture of Danton with one of the effect powders to dilute the pigments in the Danton and control the value, the brightness. In our case here in particular, we mix the powder or Danton, the power Danton, with transpa neutral. The ratio of the transpa neutral 60% to 40% power Danton to make the Danton more translucent. That's the aim of this dynamic Danton, and consequently create smoother transition among layers. And yet, if you noticed, I did not place any porcelain from the lingual aspect. The lingual aspect, I'm just trying to like correct here a little bit, but the lingual aspects would stay till the very end, and the lingual aspect is a window for correction, actually. Therefore, I won't close it till I finish layering the entire buccal aspect. And now we get to the mammalon cutback step. And after we make sure that the moisture content is correct to allow us a successful cutback that does not fracture or slump, we would use a ceramic brush in the same manner by flattening the hair of the brush into a blade and cutting the incisal edge into mammalon structure. Remember that the bigger the brush size is the better for separating those mammalon's fingers, obviously, because it makes a bigger blade. The important question here, is there any rules on the width or proportions of those fingers? Frankly, no, but we tend to believe that there are 3 mammalons in the centrals. And since they started primarily erupting as 3 developmental grooves from the childhood, but with time they deform, they are likely to stay 3 fingers or 3 mammalons. And there are also some ongoing studies on the possibility of any correlation between the shape of the tooth and the shape of the mammalon, but no results yet. And some other observations that tend to believe that the distal mamelon is the biggest or the widest, followed by the mesial, and then the middle mamelon, the smallest. Uh, and also the edge of the distal mamelon is tend to be like rounded, while the edge of the mesial mamelon is straightened up. We also could create secondary mamelon, as you just seen here, in the middle and the mesial mamelon, just in the middle mamelon and mesial mamelon, but not in the distal one. Well, at least what you just seen is one pattern of how to create mamelons. Now comes the opalescent step, where we start filling the opening among these mamelons using the opalescent powder. Starting from one side, could be the distal, then moving to the mesial, then filling in between from the labial surface. Of course, we extend the length vertically by another 10% using the same powder. Just to remind you that we have 4 opal effects in our opal effect range. Number 1 is the light absorbent, which gives us the bluish opalescent effect, while number 2, 3, and 4 are light reflective with more whitish cloudy effect. That's of course depends on the thickness of the layer. And we also have additional 2 opal effects, one orange and one violet. Maybe in another video we'll get to discuss in details how and when to use all of them, all of the opal effect powders. Back to our layering here. After we finish from the buckle, filling the opal effect 1, we turn to the lingual aspect to do the same, and we fill the gaps across the mamelon. Very important not to lose focus on the tooth morphology, and we keep our eyes open on the curvatures of the buildup, and we make sure we are following the morphology precisely. Now we could lower the value in some selective spots and increase their absorption of light. Of course, this is optional, but before we need to create a room again, like to apply this absorbent powder. I could also use my blade to scrape away some of the opalescent powder I got on the last layer, exactly as you see now, and apply this powder in the middle, on the incisal third, in the middle between the mesial and distal sides, using this sharp tip of my separation blade, but absolutely after I make sure that the ceramic moisture content at this moment is under control. It must be dry enough so when I move my separating tool on the ceramic surface, it won't collapse. Then I go ahead again and moisten it in order to accept the added layer of powder. And now it's time to replace the thickness of powder I removed with a thin film of absorbent powder or value reducing powder, if we can call it that, such as what I used here is opal effect violet. That would give us the optical effect of more depth in the ceramic. That's very important. And we also could have some external stain on the top. As you see now, we could add some calcification white stain from Ivo color kit in a form of like brush strikes on the middle third. but make sure that the stain is not pulling together in one spot, neither getting absorbed by the powder underneath it. Therefore, we should condense our ceramic powder before doing the step. This is very important. And here I would like to show you just a picture of the second layer, the incisal layer, which I'm not going to go through it in this video. It's just a picture uh, just to show you that the main focus at this step is the surface morphology, because all the layers were already put in the first Danton and intermediate layer. Our final results after the glaze and the manual polishing. You can see every powder we put into this layering. Even the white calcification stain is visible in the middle. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found some information to use in your daily lab work. I wanted to highlight some of the topics you requested through this case. Please don't forget to email me or write down here in the comment section if you have any questions. As usual, looking forward to the next topic. Stay safe and see you next time.